Well, welcome to this week's episode of Watershed Talks. How you doing, Tim?
It's been a surprisingly salubrious season for my soul.
You even got alliteration in there.
I know, right?
Salubrious season for your soul. Well,
Yeah.
for those of us who don't have Webster's dictionary memorized, what in the world do you mean?
Healthy, beneficial, in a good state.
Healthy, beneficial, and a good state.
I was getting tired of just saying good.
Okay,
Yeah.
salubrious.
Salubrious is the I'm doing well for the day.
A salubrious soul. And we also have Matt.
Hello.
How you doing, buddy?
I don't know anymore.
Are you fortuitous?
Are you salubrious?
Fortuitous.
Buoyant?
I feel pretty buoyant today.
Okay, all right.
Did you know, I didn't know this, but if you don't have a whole lot of body fat, you're not very buoyant. I sink.
Oh, yeah,
I-
that makes sense.
I can't swim.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Fact of the day.
Yeah.
I had a family member that could just do she could just essentially stand in the water.
What?
Like without kicking, without treading
Whoa.
at all. Could just vertically just be in the deep end and would just bob.
So bobbing.
Would just sit there and just totally float without any movement whatsoever, and not even
Wow.
laying on their back. So
Wow.
they had buoyancy.
Buoyant. They're very buoyant.
But you're saying that you go right to the bottom.
Oh, I do. Yeah, every
Okay.
time.
Really?
I'm
So you can't kick on your back and wow. Okay.
I cannot float at
that
all.
that really means that you have a dead soul.
And
I think so.
And that's why you're in the Air Force.
Unfortunately, in the Navy, they tell you to take off your pants and make them a flotation device, but that doesn't work very well in civilian life.
Okay. All right.
Because you can't take off your pants.
No, you don't need to do that. Yeah. So
That's
we've gone a weird way,
Wow.
but maybe it's these kind of odd, totally non sequitur thoughts that Tim has that means that he's so salubrious. Maybe
yes, I think
his
so.
brain just ping ponging around to
Yeah.
little funny things.
Little ADHD.
It helps with your salubriousness. So, anyways, well, today we're going to dive into Judges. Did you have anything else to? You looked like. I'm sorry. You looked like.
No,
you were,
I'm
okay.
just excited for this episode.
Oh well, great. That's always something to.
And
be.
trying to be more prepared to speak for next time you
Oh
bombast me with a question.
man, we are having all sorts of
Bombast.
big words today. I like it. We are going for broke on our dictionary part of the bingo. Maybe that's another.
High-sounding language.
Maybe that's another square on the bingo is if we use a big word, then you get to put your marker on that. So
In some ways, that was a kind of a knock on you. High-sounding language with little meaning used to impress people.
hey, that is pretty much what an erudite is doing, right?
Right? Yeah. Actually,
Wow.
Listen to me. I'm smart.
Yeah. No, I fully admit that my longing to sound like a scholar is built on vanity. So I will own that. But anyways, we're in Judges with the story of Gideon. One of my favorite parts of Scripture. The Judges cycle. I've heard it called the sin cycle. This sort of rinse, wash, and repeat on needing a judge to come and save them. But what is our focus as we unpack the Gideon story today, or at least the first part of the Gideon story?
So we are in our sermon series about mental health, and what we're talking about today is we're talking about the stories that we tell ourselves. I know I've said that one before, but in particular, we're talking about thinking traps or cognitive distortions. So a thinking trap is some way that your mind gets trapped in some sort of thought process that is unhealthy. And a cognitive distortion is ways that your brain sees or views or understands things that are not commensurate with reality. They're not lined up with reality.
Now, I think most scholarship on this matter in the last few hundred years would say that we never see reality as it is. We are always in our. It came from Immanuel Kant. And,
I was going to say that
others,
sounds like philosophy,
but that we only have perceived reality, period, and that we're always looking through a filter.
Yeah.
Now, my belief is that part of what happens when we are totally in communion with the Holy Spirit is we might get like a taste of that. We might get a little peek at true reality. So, my belief system is that through our faith, through communion with God, we do have the chance. I mean, do you think that we might, or
and actually that's one of the things that I brought up throughout the whole teaching on it is that Gideon has his view, and then God actually has his truth. And when Gideon aligns his view with God's truth, then he sees it more clearly.
All right, so we kind of know a little bit where we're headed today. Well, let's go ahead and dive into the story. While you're pulling it up, Tim, and by the way, since you got like 2 chapters here, I'm going to let you just,
I know,
you know, you can decide, are you going to read some of the verses, or are you going to just sort of recap it for us in your own words? But Matt, I'm curious, just as a getting to know you question, when it comes to the character of Gideon, what's something that you've always liked? Was there a part of his story that sticks with you? Is there anything that just, when it comes to Gideon, it comes to your mind?
Well, I think the whole story comes to mind, like, you know, them smashing idols.
Okay.
And then running away and hiding.
Okay.
And then the fleece.
So when you picture the idol smashing part of his story, not everybody even knows that part.
Yeah.
But when you picture the idol smashing, what music is playing to that scene?
Ooh. Probably
Just genre.
orchestral metal.
Orchestral metal. Okay.
That's a thing.
It is a thing.
It is, yeah.
I know what my homework is. That's
yeah. Well, he could give you some tips on that. I
takeaway.
don't have much in my playlist on orchestral metal, but I bet you do. So now we're kind of seeing the scene a little bit. We've got Matt's sound composition in the background. Tim, hit us with where we're starting.
Okay, so I want you to, if you've ever been to Sunday school back in the 90s, do you remember the flannel graph?
Ooh, yeah.
Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
So it's the flannel graph or flannel boards. You know, so you have all these little pieces made out of felt that you tell the story with. So in your head,
now I got you.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's that, and the reason why we're doing that is because he put the felt on the floor, you know. So that's
the fleece. Gotcha, yeah,
the fleece. Yeah.
Yep.
So I just thought it was kind of funny.
Okay,
Like,
okay.
So in your head, you can picture this. All right. So we're in Judges, and starting off with 6, and so Israel has once again drifted away from God, and now they have been kind of put into poverty by the Midianites for about 7 years.
Okay.
Now we don't know necessarily if they're not slaves because they're still there, but anytime anything good happens, the Midianites just come strip it from them.
I think a modern word would be the Midianites are bullying the Israelites.
Yeah.
They're not totally conquering them 24/7, you know, serving them day in and day out, but they are definitely taking their lunch money every time they get some, right?
Yeah, and it's you might not get this reference. I don't think you've seen it, Napoleon Dynamite's.
Oh, yeah.
Dynamite. You know, give me some of your tots, Napoleon.
Okay.
So that's what they're doing to him.
Okay.
Give me some of your wheat.
You know, not the worst possible existence as a human, but definitely one that would cause mental and emotional stress, and probably even trauma.
Yeah.
So this is sort of the state they're living in.
Yep. Can't feed your family.
Yeah.
And so God, in that cycle that we see in Judges, he raises up the deliverer, and that deliverer is Gideon. Gideon's not a warrior type. He's actually, when we meet him at first, he's threshing wheat in a wine press, which means that he's hiding. He's making it so that the Midianites don't see that he's doing this because they would take it away. And so he automatically, when the angel of the Lord comes to him, the Lord says, you know, God is with you, mighty warrior. And he's like, okay, so where's the God that I heard about in the time of Moses? You know, the God that came down with power and might and all this other stuff. And so he's like, you know, since I haven't seen that power in my life, I really don't think you're, you know, God just left us. And it's a first thinking trap. It's that overgeneralization. Something bad happens, and then we, you know, think that all these other, we just go off of that one example and then we run with it.
So that's that catastrophizing.
This one's actually it's overgeneralization. You know, so you know something happens to you one time. That always is the way that it is. You know.
And is this what we do with like our life, or we do this about another person, or both, or?
Yeah, we can do it with really anything. So one thing might be, you know, I got a bad grade on a test. You know, I always get bad grades on tests. You know, things like that. And so what he's saying here is, you know, God never God never ever does this kind of stuff for us anymore. So therefore, he's going to the conclusion God's not with us.
Okay, gotcha.
And so then God is basically like, okay, he listens, he doesn't condemn or anything like that. And then for some reason, Gideon's kind of like, okay, I'll buy it, and he goes and he has some, God's giving Gideon some signs about like who God is here.
Okay.
And so it's the angel of the Lord. Gideon prepares a feast or a sacrifice. The angel of the Lord comes and touches it with the staff, and boom, it goes up in flames. And then Gideon's immediate reaction is, oh my gosh, I saw the Lord face to face. I'm going to die.
Wow.
And that's catastrophizing. You take one thing and you run with it, and you think of the worst possible scenario.
And I find it interesting how often we can have people encounter the exact same reality. Because where I'm coming from here is if I see, number one, an angel, number two, he hits a staff and fire, and it's like a cool, like I guess you don't know till you're in it, but my gut says I would be like excited. I would be like, oh my gosh, that is so cool.
Yeah.
If I would probably, my sin would be like, can you do it again?
Well, that's what Gideon says, pretty much.
But out of like, he gets this sort of fear. He's like sort of like you're saying. He thinks of this trope that they had that if you saw the face of God, you're gonna like. He immediately goes to how this is a very negative thing for him.
Yeah,
I feel like I would be like, this is awesome.
Right.
Like this is so cool. Everybody come see. And I mean, how
God
often
is with us.
I mean, how often do we have people see the same reality and have two very different? Let's use your stories. Two very different interpretations of it. Two very different stories. I mean, this is happening all the time in today's world with like the fact that we can send out videos of things that, so we don't even have to be there. We can just watch a video. And I mean, my goodness, how different people will interpret the exact same objective, you know what I'm saying? The evidence of life as, oh, this means this or this means that. And I guess I just wonder why do we so often interpret it so negatively?
Yeah.
Why don't we misinterpret it like positively?
I always go back to like, some Christians will, kind of like, but if you look at like how humans progressed over history, if you think of like the evolutionary stuff behind it, we are pre-programmed for danger, and we if we think of all the possible things that could happen that are wrong, then that like ancestors long ago, whether we have a 6,000 year creation or whether we have evolution, whatever you want to say, there's something pre-programmed in us that we run from danger and we try to scope out all the dangerous things around us in order to save ourselves. And so I think just that human reaction is, I'm going to look at all the negative first, and then I can focus on the positive. But that positive doesn't really happen all that often.
Yeah, it really doesn't. We had in my previous life, when I thought I was going to be in the corporate world for my career, before God kept wrestling with me and wouldn't let me avoid.
Did he finally pop your hip out?
Yeah, pastoral ministry. We had training on like just training on different things, and one was we had a consultant come in and he did training on good email practices and really good text communication practices. And one of the things he pointed out was you need to go out of your way to be positive, maybe flowery, fill in the blank, but you need to go out of your way, because whenever someone misreads an email, they never misread it in a positive light.
That is true.
That's so true.
You can, and he showed examples, again, the same objective email. And, those of us in the room are like, well, yeah, that doesn't say anything bad. But depending on the state of where someone's in, their mood in that day or whatever their experience is, like you can also see how they could take it like, oh, he's mad at me or he's upset. And so you need to go out of your way to be explicitly positive. And to me, I think Gideon, when you're describing what he's doing here, where he's making to me, it's kind of a jump that he's seen the face of the Lord.
Yeah.
and now he's going to die.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to give the guy a hug. I mean, he seems a little, and I guess maybe, okay, so now I'll offer some understanding. If he's being bullied, if they're being oppressed, if they're in a state of trauma and mental, I mean, Tim, I mean, you study the psychological side a little more than I do. Is that, when that's going on in someone's life, is that a common kind of instinctual place to read reality in that kind of way?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, they've done scans on people's brains and people who have grown up with trauma. There are portions of the brains, especially the back portion, which is more that primal part of it. It's actually bigger because that's your fight or flight response. And so that portion of the brain gets bigger while your frontal lobe actually gets noticeably smaller.
Okay.
And so it can actually change the physiological portions of your brain. That your brain is pretty plastic throughout your life. And so you can actually change it and find ways to cope. So it's not just I'm broken. But a lot of times what people will do too is they'll develop some sort of disorders, personality disorders, or things like that to deal with long-standing trauma because that's just how you've learned to cope with it over many, many different years.
But you kind of said it as an aside. I want to highlight the brain is a muscle like any other. It
Right.
can heal. We know that you can, these neural pathways, these ruts that you get stuck in, you can rewire them. Well, I would say God rewires them.
Yeah,
but there are
it's
things
true.
you can do to bring that healing in, right?
Yeah. And I think really one of the things that, modern counseling and psychology really doesn't get at too much is the spiritual side of it, because I really think that hope, the idea of transformation, if you believe that, this is possible in your life, then you can actually make those changes. Yeah.
I have a theory. Bingo.
Whoa.
That we actually do produce the reality we believe in and the reality we choose to see. That I believe, and it's getting a little metaphysical, but I do believe we actually have an impact on creating a reality that sort of is impacted by the reality we chose to believe in and chose to see beforehand. I'll give an example. Two friends, two buddies, and this is just an extreme example, but I think we can look at extremes and then learn from them. And one of the guys, just for whatever reason, he misplaces a $20 bill, and he just assumes that it's his buddy, and it wasn't, but he just, for whatever reason, he just, there's some weird coincidence, and he just assumes it's his buddy. And then that just spiral goes, and it never was his buddy. And then he starts to be suspicious of him more and more and more. What happens to that relationship? It produces, even if that friend never turns into a thief, it can end up producing a broken relationship that can't heal simply because, we looked at evidence and made the worst story out of it we can about the other. So okay, so we've got his response to just generalizing God. He's making these sort of eternal statements about
God's
God.
never gonna help us. He's gone. He doesn't care.
Just off, and he's not thinking like, look, this is just a moment, right? And then he's catastrophizing with how he reacts to the cool fireworks.
Yep.
What's next?
Well, and just to go with the catastrophizing, just so people can kind of get an idea of what this looks like in your own life. So if you've ever had like a bill that comes in the mail that you weren't expecting, then your next thought is, oh my gosh, what else am I missing?
Right.
And then you just start spiraling. And so it's one of those things where we can really get locked into the worst possible thing. And the good news is most of the things that we think are terrible and we're afraid of, most of them don't ever happen.
So, Matt, I'm going to hear from you. At either of these two moments in Gideon's life, whether this generalizing, defining somebody else or God or yourself, or the catastrophizing, do you relate to either of those?
Yes.
You got an example or something that comes to mind, or?
Well, I was very easily. I've kind of grown more so out of it after maybe having meetings that are good. But like whenever somebody's like, "Hey, we gotta have a meeting," it's
man.
like,
What did I say?
Oh no,
What did I do?
what
I still do that.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that.
it's terrifying.
Hey,
It
we need
can
to
be.
talk.
It's like,
Dang it!
oh no,
I don't want to talk.
and sometimes those meetings, they could be promotion.
Right.
You walk in thinking, and then it's like, hey,
Yeah.
you're doing awesome. Here's
And then what I think about is like how much between when you get the email or text that you need to meet, between then and when you meet, how many of your interactions with the rest of people, the rest of reality, the rest of your day or days, if it takes days,
Shaped by that.
is shaped by that, impacted by that. And then, we start to see the tangled web, right?
Yep.
The ripple effect, the butterfly effect,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, but you're saying you've started to work on that, or God's
well, it's
helped
gotten easier as I've realized. Hey, like meeting with you,
you? Right.
is typically just perfectly fine.
Okay.
It's like, okay.
Well, good,
You know?
good. So, what's next then?
Yeah. So Gideon, he's now struggling with the need for reassurance. So he knows that this is actually the angel of God, and so he's like, okay, God, I'm going to go for it. And so he gathers up this army. 32,000 men show up, and so Gideon's like, okay, this is wonderful, this is great, but how do I know this is going to work out in my favor?
Right.
And so he's like, hey, God, I got this deal for you. I'm going to put this fleece on the floor, the threshing floor, which probably is his wine press floor. And so he's like, hey, I'm going to put the fleece there. And if you really want me to do this, then when I wake up tomorrow morning, the fleece is going to be totally soaked and the floor is going to be dry. And so he wakes up the next morning.
Yeah.
He wrings it out, bowl full of water. Okay, that's pretty telling. And so he's like, okay, let's do this. And then he's like, and then, pardon me, God. That's one of my favorite lines here. Pardon me, God. But now, can you do the
Excuse me.
opposite? Yeah. Like a high pinky up,
Yeah.
Excuse me. Can you do the opposite? Can you make the fleece dry and the floor just soaked? And so he wakes up the next morning and it is. And so finally, he's won that battle in his mind against like I need all this reassurance, and so that's one thing that we see as well. There's this trap that a lot of us struggle with. It's like I don't want to move forward until I have 100% certainty that this is going to succeed, and there's this need for reassurance in our life, and I see this one a lot with people. We think that there's certain things that we have to have in order to find security and safety in life. Yeah. And unless we have that, then we're just not going to be happy.
Oh my Lord, we could do a whole series on how much we get trapped in what gives us control, security, safety, and what we're willing to sacrifice for it.
Oh yeah,
is it's insane. But so. This is are you okay? Are we kind of summing up the whole fleece deal?
Yep. Fleece we're done.
Well, I just mean like the whole back and forth with the fleece and the need for reassurance. This is a classic struggle for people that are beginning to grow in their faith because, Jesus tells us that we shouldn't test the Lord. So, if it's okay, I'd like to just pause for a moment and how do y'all reconcile that here we have this instruction not to do this, but God does it. Like, what are y'all's thoughts just around that? Like, would you agree that we're not that the ideal is to not have to set out a fleece?
That is definitely the ideal, yeah.
And, why do you think that? And then how do you deal with or reconcile that here a hero of the Israelite faith does it?
I mean, I would suppose God's grace on us as humans, because you make an excellent point. If he didn't do the fleece test, they would have been 2 days ahead of schedule, so to speak.
Okay.
So in the perfect world, he would have been, all right, let's do this, and all ready to go. But he took 2 nights, battling of like, is this really,
Yeah.
I think about how God will use imperfect people to accomplish his perfect plan, and how God will oftentimes wait until we're at that point where we're able or ready to go. And that's why our God is so gracious, because
Yeah.
we don't deserve that.
Right.
It should be, you've got an order from the commander and you carry that out. But we have human agency as well, the ability to freely choose. And so, sometimes we're like, well, I don't think I'm ready for that yet, God.
I mean, answering my own question, I think that I also think of like Doubting Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime you hear that story, at least I can't say anytime, but most of the times I've grown up hearing that story preached on, it's focuses so much on Thomas and on, this is not the way to be.
Right.
And I think that it misses the boat because the hero of that story is Christ. And the hero in this story is God. We have to remember who the subject is of the sentence, if you will. What God does for us and to us, we're the objects, the indirect or direct objects, but the subject is God or Christ. And, what did Christ do? He said clearly, better to believe without having to do this, but then he lets Thomas do it.
Yeah.
He meets him where he's at. And I just think that's, this idea of reassurance, I think is a nifty thing to think on as a Christian, as you mature. Because there are a lot of preachers and theologians. I could be wrong, but I think Wesley has some really good writings on the idea of there is in a Christian a reassurance of your salvation.
Yep.
And that's fine. Mm-hmm. That's like a thing that you have as a well of peace and strength. You just have some sense that you just know that God's with you. You know that Jesus did come in your heart, right? Know that you are saved. But I'm pretty sure it was Wesley himself who said, but be careful of constantly seeking reassurance from feelings. From feelings. That's a different reassurance.
Yeah.
And that's what Gideon's doing, and God still meets him there. But for us, kind of looking at ideas of what to move forward, it's okay to be reassured that you're a Christian, reassured that your home is in heaven, right? I mean, y'all agree?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that is different than needing to be reassured from your feelings.
Yeah, because your feelings will lie to you over and over again.
Oh, man. I call it the pain voice. I have a pain voice. I didn't come up with that, but I picked that up somewhere that there's my wounds, my trauma in the past has a voice, and it will absolutely lie.
Mm-hmm.
And, so Tim, what is, first off, moving on with the story, Gideon, do we have any other bullet points here? We've gone.
So I'm just going to end it all off, right?
Okay.
So then what we have next is, so Gideon is fully on board and he's like, okay, let's do this. So he has an army of 32,000 people and God's like, okay, if you win this, you're going to think it's on your own power. So therefore go tell anybody who's afraid. If you're afraid, go home. So 20,000 men leave. And then he's like, still, 10,000, too many. You're going to think it's you. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, have the men go down there. Anyone who laps up the water like a dog, which is, I thought this, I was just talking during the sermon and sometimes you say things just out of your mind. I was like, man, those would be the guys I'd want fighting for me. Like these are the crazy ones. Like, they're like dogs, and so the 300 men, that's all he has left.
So he goes, just to recap, from 32,000, mm-hmm. God takes him all the way down to 300.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
And, so you think about the reassurance that Gideon had with the 32,000 and now that's a challenge to your assurance. Like, oh my gosh, so I think it's kind of neat because it's God saying, let me take that away from you. And now let's see what you really believe.
Well, they go even farther where it's like, hey, you're fighting them with pots and torches.
Yeah. Well, I think I could be wrong, but one of the Hebrew words where God is saying, I'm going to, it's called winnowing. I'm going to winnow this army because, and I think in English translations it says, that we won't boast or that the Israelites wouldn't boast and stuff, but that word also can be translated as knowing. And I think, God is like, I'm not going to give you any excuse for explaining this away with any other reason besides me, and I mean, I think that pretty much is true if it's down to 300.
I don't, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like that, it's God.
Yeah.
And I don't know about y'all. This is kind of going back to how we read reality. I find when things happen that are too coincidental, like they're just too amazing, my heart, my gut just goes to that was God.
I know. Yeah. I mean, if it's odd, it's God.
Okay, I never heard that.
Yeah.
But not everybody does. And what do you think changes someone where they begin to read reality that way, the way of seeing God's hand in it versus that was just happenstance? Like, what do you think? Is it just belief that God exists, or is it something else?
It's a hard one because there's a lot that has to happen, and we tend to think like once you're saved, then you're good. But this is where discipleship really comes in, because when you
maturing.
Exactly. I could be a 3-day-old Christian and I could go preach on the street and try to save everybody, but I don't have that depth that I would get if I spent 5 years in a discipleship kind of program.
I mean, the idea of muscle memory, that takes time to build, whether that's a golf swing or I'm blanking. Do you play sports?
No.
Okay.
Muscle memory for me, I don't even know what mine is the Lord's Prayer.
Okay.
And stuff like that. Because remember, if I start thinking about it, like, the life of a pastor, if you start thinking about a prayer that you have memorized, it goes into the wrong portion of your brain and you forget it.
Yeah. But I mean, we said earlier, the brain is a muscle. So the time to build up that muscle, being saved is one thing, and it's step point 1. But, to be in a place where you sort of react to reality in a way that is sort of God infused, that takes time.
Yeah. It takes a lot of getting beaten down by the world and trusting in God over and over and over again until really the need for reassurance is gone. Just like Gideon, like God will strip it away over and over.
Oh, I was going to point out is like God's grace giving Gideon yet another reassurance in the fact that a Midian, or who are they? They're fighting the Midianites. Yeah, the Midian had that dream of them being wiped out, and Gideon hears it, and it's like,
it's go time.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Tell that story really quick. What for those who don't know it? What
King James is?
You don't have to read it. No, just tell it in your own words. What's that? What's happening?
They're getting ready to, they're getting ready to fight, and Gideon comes down to like their camp. It's night, and he's like, I don't know, just scoping out the place a little bit closer.
Little recon
work.
John Cena.
He's a little guy, so he can hide in places. And
nice.
And he overhears 2 Midianites talking to each other, and one of them's like, dude, I just had a nightmare of a dream where essentially a piece of bread came over and wiped out a tent. Yeah. Wiped us out.
Right. And you're right. Another sign from God. Mm-hmm. Another sign from God.
In that moment, it's like Gideon's like, let's do this.
And it's just so funny the way that they do it. It's like, okay, we're going to take the 300 guys and circle the camp, and let's make lots of noise, blow trumpets, and break things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's quite a dramatic thing. I'm trying to remember if there's a movie that's ever put this scene in, but they
really should.
The Midianite army is down in a valley. The Gideon and his 300 surround them on the hillsides. They have their torches are covered with a clay pot of some kind. And then whenever, I forget what the sign was, but whenever it's time to go, they break it and they blow trumpets, and it, and then, like you said, God's already done the work to stir up, tension and anxiety and fear. And so this, boom, like it would have made it look like it was a lot more.
Yep.
Basically.
So you want to hear the mind blown moment. Okay. So we're talking about human psychology here, and Gideon had all this fear, all this doubt in himself. God freed him from that, helped him to basically put his assurance in God alone. And now Midian takes that idea, that psychological warfare. God, has this battlefield in their minds, the Midianites, and God uses that for Israel's advantage. So it's psychological warfare that Gideon is doing right here.
Okay, so are we taking notes? Are we?
But isn't that kind of weird? It's like what Gideon's been freed of.
Yeah.
These people, they don't
That's
have
cool.
that, so it's they're afraid, and then they trample each other, they kill each other
Yep.
because it's out of fear, just what like Gideon had before.
I never caught that. That's really cool.
So as we kind of turn to, I don't know, I kind of want to ask the question one more time.
Yeah, go for it.
I find the need to emphasize that you don't necessarily have all this from the moment of conversion.
Mm-hmm.
And we could have another discussion another day that believing in God's existence and reality, and even Jesus's reality, that may not even save you. I mean, that alone, belief in in agreeing that they're real, is not necessarily being saved. But that's a conversation for another day. But that what we're talking about is is conditioning and forming and shaping ourselves in a way where we're not like Gideon that sees the cool angel stick fire and reacts in the most negative story possible, the most negative, worst version of the narrative. We react this other way. And I mean, I know I'm babbling a little bit, but isn't that a part of what should be a Christian witness in the world, is this other way of responding, this other way of reading reality? And so if it's not just belief, what is it? What makes a difference between someone who, would agree that God is real and Jesus is real, Jesus came, and somebody who can read reality this God-infused way? What makes that difference? How do you get there?
No, I think it just takes time of development, growing stronger in your faith and just kind of learning more,
Okay.
It's kind of a simple answer, but
So you were referencing discipleship, but also going through the suffering. It takes a little while. I mean, to me, this is a natural segue into closing with our practices. If somebody wants to get better at this muscle, what do we say that they can do?
Well, they can read the Bible, God's Word.
Okay.
Is one way of, it's full of, I was reading this morning in Hebrews, Hebrews 11, where it talks all about these people throughout the whole Testament, and by their faith, things happened.
Right.
That's one big way.
So you believe that being in the Word regularly can actually help you with your psychological state?
Yeah,
your mental health.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, great. So daily Bible study of some kind.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Daily devotional.
Tim, do you have a practice?
Yeah, so I really actually struggled with this one in the sermon because I didn't know how to end it. And so I spoke to my wife, who's a therapist, and she kind of helped me out with this a little bit. And, my thought was we all have this battlefield in our mind, and that Satan knows us better than anyone else. He knows what will make us stumble. I mean, I don't think Satan's actually able to get into your mind and things like that, but I do think that he knows what it is, like the fears, the things, and he can set things up because this is his realm.
You said thinking traps at the beginning,
right.
So
yeah.
He can set some traps up.
Exactly, and we'll walk into them. And, there's never a time in our life where we don't have something going on. We tend to think that we are going to be able to overcome it.
When I get to here.
Exactly, yeah. And, it's so crazy because in being a pastor, you get to talk with people from all different generations, and the people in their 40s, yeah, they have problems that I can relate to, but then people in their 70s and 80s, it's a whole different set of problems. And I wouldn't want to trade one for the other. I mean, you're always going to have something. So there's never a time when life is just perfect.
You're stealing my practice. But
Oh,
go ahead.
okay.
Sorry. No, it's okay. I'm playing.
And so, the whole thing with it is like, okay, so you have to learn how to do this sometime. And so the way that she explained it is this, we tend to prepare ourselves for all the bad things in our life that are going to happen: anxiety, shame, worry. These are all things that we do, thinking that if we can just mentally prepare for it, then when it actually happens, then we're going to be okay. Typically, what happens though is we mentally prepare for it so much that what we're preparing for never actually materializes. 60 to 80% of the things that we think are going to happen that are bad never happen. And oftentimes when they do happen where they're bad, they're never quite as bad as you think they're going to be.
Wasn't it Mark Japingo that said that his brother thinks that it doesn't happen because of all the worry and stress? Or was that Mark? Maybe Mark said that about himself.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Sorry if I'm putting words, but it was really funny idea of like, well, yeah, it doesn't happen because I stress and stress and stress.
But that's what we do. We think that way. It's
To piggyback of what you're saying, the difference between difference between a loser and a champion is the champion, this is an audio podcast, but if you can imagine a graph, they go up a little bit, but then trials come against them. The loser, or the I don't know what else to call them, their graph is kind of like a zigzag, where it's like they're constantly pushed and then they go back down. The difference with a champion is that pressure comes and they stay put and they fight it off, so to speak, and then conquer that, and then they go up again, and then the pressure comes, and it's more like a stair step.
Well, and it's so true, because we all hit these plateaus in life where it's like you grow a little bit, and then you think, oh, now I've made it, now I'm accomplished, and then something else happens.
We need to mark down different episodes, because the idea of arriving is,
I know, right? I like that.
Very true.
Well, Roger Federer. Oh, you finished.
Oh, okay. Well, if you want to.
Well, because you're using a little bit of a sports or champion, metaphor, and Roger Federer, who's like world champion tennis player, he went back. He was doing a commencement speech. I forget at what college, but he had gone back and looked at the stats of like all of his games for, I don't know, like for forever, like a lot of years, and they calculated the percentage of points that he won. So not games, not matches, not sets, but literally like a volley, and whether he won that or not, right? And even though he is a world renowned champion, I don't know tennis, but my understanding he's going to go down in like Hall of Fame levels.
Okay.
The percentage of actual individual volley points that he won was just 54%.
Oh wow.
He lost 46% of the time. And it was just, but that was the difference between world champion and he credited it to, and this maybe for another day, that it was his practice and his ability to, when he lost that point, he put it out of his mind. Now he's here right now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And he credited it to that ability to let go of what just happened, good or bad, and be in it right now. But anyway, I think that's kind of crazy. Like a world champion only won 54%.
That's
that is
crazy.
interesting, yeah.
And it made all that difference.
But I mean, that's the power of presence and being grounded and not letting these things.
Yeah.
And so
I'll
finish.
Back to your practice.
Yeah. So with all that being said, each one of us has something that we're dealing with at all times. So the thing that we can do for our lives is to, whatever it is, give it to God. And like Gideon, it might take us 2 or 3 times, 4 times, 10 times, whatever, but continue to give it to God. And then what will happen is eventually you'll get to a point where you either see it resolved or, something will happen. And then what you do is when you start to see like, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, or God really came through, then you're actually training your mind and you're building new pathways here so that your brain says, you know what? I don't really have to worry about this because I can give that to God. I can, lay it at the feet of Jesus, and I'm going to let Him take care of it.
Yeah. Let go and let God, I think the 12-step slogan. So, okay. And
that's good.
So just so I can see this, how would I start doing this, like, say, this week? Am I journaling it? Am I just sort of...
I think the practice is however you want to do it. when I do this, because I struggled a lot with anger and with bitterness toward people. And so what I would do is every time I would get angry at somebody and I would start cycling and ruminating
Broken
on them.
record.
Yeah. What I would do is I'd go into a practice where I'd say, okay, God, I'm going to pray for my enemy. And so I started to pray like, God, I hope something good happens to him today. Over and
That
over
is
again.
powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it changes the cycle of your thinking, partly because I don't want to be praying for good things to happen. So it's like,
Sure.
okay, I'm not going to think about them anymore.
Yeah.
But it just changes the way that you view people. It's really difficult to be angry at somebody you're praying for.
Yeah, I have times where I'm like, nope, God, I'm not doing it. I'm going to just stay mad for a little while. But that's my rebellion in me, I guess. I guess I just want to say one thing, and then I'll give my practice. One of the reasons I push us for this is because, like, this story is a wonderful story. But what we tend to see a lot of times in scripture stories is what not to do. And so we want to not generalize. We want to not catastrophize. We want to not need reassurance all the time. And I just kind of find that, at least for myself, if my action item list is things I need to not do, well, then I'm focused on that negative, and I end up doing them. Whereas if I can turn it to the other side and say, well, what can I focus on to do that I know is going to help with not doing that? That, for me anyways, and that's one of the reasons I care about these practices. So I thought you were going to steal mine, but then you went a different way.
Okay, good.
So I guess for about 6 years now, I have had the blessing of having in my life a Bible study that we would say is full of the wisest generation, the silver generation, if you will, if you get what I'm saying. Basically filled with people who are at least 20 to 30 to 40 years older than me. And the shaping and the forming that has happened in discussions with people that are one or even two chapters down the road in life than where I'm at. There's a lot of power in being in your peer group. I'm not saying don't do that, but my suggestion is, if what we're talking about takes discipleship, well, of course, Christ is our main disciple, but find an elder in this world who you can trust, who's a believer, who has shown themselves to, walk with God, and they've walked a few more steps down the road than you are, and, find a regular way to be with them. Bring, maybe you don't do a whole group. Maybe it's somebody that you go to coffee with. I've known people that have done this and they call it accountability partner. I'm more meaning a discipleship partner, or a group. But there's just I can only speak for myself, how much it's done for me because when I'm sharing the thing that's overwhelming me, that's causing me to catastrophize, and they laugh lovingly, you realize it's not that big a deal.
Right, yeah.
Right? Or they
Very
offer
true.
another vantage point on it. So my suggested practice is to get an elder in your life. I mean, a believer, trusted, shown themselves. Don't just randomly, don't just throw a dart and hit somebody. But my suggestion would be to form some kind of relationship, some kind of regular interaction with an elder. So if our churches were going to begin to be filled with people that do this, or let me ask it this way. What would be, Pastor Tim, you preach this Sunday, what would be your hope as far as how is this a Christian hope for people to learn about this kind of psychological mental health thing? What is your hope when it comes to your kingdom hope, your Christian hope for this?
Yeah. So the big thing, and I've actually been thinking about this quite a bit, when we think about a human being, God's creation, we tend to think about, just compartmentalize pieces, but I think of our body as holistic, so there's different facets. There's the social, spiritual, psychological, emotional, behavioral, and physical body. And when you are a person who's, spiritual, that's a great thing. But if you can work on all those areas, the social, the physical, and the emotional, mental health, then you become a person who, is different from a lot of other people in the world. You know, I think we can all think of somebody in our life who, you know, they're physically healthy, they're spiritually healthy, you know, they're taking care of themselves mentally, they're stable, you know, all these different things, and they've got great relationships. And you think about the power and the impact that one person has
everywhere they go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people, they want that so much in their life that that's very attractive. And I think that's one of the best ways that we can actually preach the gospel, is to live in such a way where holistically we're living all of this out. And it just draws people in, because it's like they look at us and they say, that's what I want.
And I think it's those people aren't perfect, but they have a new normal.
Right, yeah.
You know, it's not that there's never a problem in their life. It's not that they never make a mistake, but their normal is a little different, or a lot different. But it's
yeah.
And you're right. It just has this. And the reason I wanted to kind of hit that is because, you know, there are people out there that would really criticize a pastor who's getting too much into psychology, so to speak. But for me, I align with you. I see it as a way to witness. This is demonstrating Christ that incarnated the human fully, and redeemed the human fully.
And what is that phrase? You know, what is not assumed
is not healed.
Yeah.
Trivia. Who said that? Just putting you on the spot. Gregory. Good old Greg. Yeah.
He's the first pope?
I don't know on that one.
Gregory Nazianzus is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
There's two Gregs, so
okay.
But definitely there was a pope, but that was Greg. I don't know if it was him, and I'm probably being a little insulting just calling him Greg. So, but yeah, I mean, to me, this is deeply Christian. This is showing Christ came and redeemed all of our human. You know, God doesn't just care about your spiritual life; He cares about your whole life. You know, so I just wanted to let you have a minute to speak to that. So, because I mean, what a better impact on, let's just say, Spencer, Iowa, Clay County, than for about 200 people, or plus anyone who's listening, to start living in this way.
Yeah,
I mean. Right?
Disciples for life.
Oh man. I mean, it just, I guess I've been told that I'm a little naive, but I actually think like it could happen. I mean, like let's let this talk shape our walk.